Today, Europe calls for protection of Ukrainian interests ahead of Trump's talks with Putin. London police arrest hundreds at a protest for banned group Palestine Action. Hunger and disease worsen as Sudan's civil war continues. The new challenges for Boeing's CEO after stabilizing the plane maker. Investors focus on US inflation data for interest rate cut clues, and Disney attempts a deal to buy the NFL's TV network. It's Sunday, August 10th. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes, 7 days a week. I'm Tara Oakes in Liverpool. First, a cautious welcome from European leaders to US President Donald Trump's plans to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin. But the Europeans say they want to maintain support for Ukraine and pressure on Russia. Their comments came in a statement after a meeting with US President JD Vance and Ukrainian representatives. The White House says Trump is open to a trilateral summit with Putin and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. But for now, they're planning a bilateral meeting, as requested by Putin. London police have arrested hundreds at a protest in support for the banned group Palestine Action. British lawmakers banned the group under anti-terrorism legislation after some of its members damaged military property in protest against Britain's support for Israel. The ban makes it a crime to be a member of a group and carries a maximum sentence of 14 years in prison. The co-founder of Palestine Action, Huda Amouri, had won a bid to bring a legal challenge against the ban, but the High Court refused an appeal to temporarily pause the ban. Now to Sudan. Halima Mohammed Adam is a cholera patient receiving treatment at a UN makeshift clinic at Tawila camp in Sudan. She tells Reuters she has nothing to eat at home and has resorted to begging from the market and from neighbours. Tawila is hosting more than 500,000 displaced people. Most of them have arrived since April, when the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces stepped up its assault on al-Fashir. The city is capital of North Darfur state. It's the biggest remaining front line in the region between Sudan's army and the RSF. But Tawila offers little aid or shelter, as humanitarian organisations are stretched by foreign aid cuts. The United Nations has called for a humanitarian pause to fighting, but the RSF has rejected the call. Now over to the US and a look at Boeing, where CEO Kelly Ortberg has largely stabilised the company. 1 year after taking over during the plane maker's biggest crisis in decades. Now, Ortberg faces challenges. The company is still losing money and trails Airbus in single-aisle jets. And at the same time, the company needs to ramp up 737 MAX production. Aerospace reporter Dan Catchpole is in Seattle looking into what's next for Ortberg.
People should understand that the fire is out at Boeing, but now I think is really the really interesting part and the really hardest work, because it is the decisions that are made today will really affect this company and American aerospace 20, 30 years from now, because they have to set themselves up to design a plane that can replace the 737, and that the market area that they've just been losing out to Airbus. And if they can't get the company in a healthy place to do that, to launch a new airplane in a few years, they potentially open the door to have some third party, some new airplane maker move in next decade and relegate themselves to some also ran.
And what about Ortberg's relationship with the administration?
Ortberg has done a good job of making the company useful for Trump in terms of getting headlines going over and being able to be on hand for announcing some big airplane order. Maintaining that relationship is going to be really key as they proceed. Boeing critically needs the FAA to work with it. Right now, it cannot ramp up its 737 production without FAA approval. And that is critical to getting enough money coming into the door to do all the other things that the company needs to do.
And staying with major American brands facing pivotal moments, the National Football League kicked off pre-season games this week, and the regular season is less than a month away. But a bigger play is underway, as Disney attempts a deal to buy the NFL's TV network. Now, we can't tell you which channel your team is on this week, but as our media and entertainment reporter, Lisa Richwine in LA, has been covering, there are other perks in the works. So Lisa, what does Disney and its sports division ESPN get out of this?
Well, one of the big things they get is 7 more NFL games a year. The NFL is the most valuable property in sports by far. This deal won't take effect right away. It has to get approval from regulators. But for ESPN, they have a brand new app that is launching on August 21st that they want to get people to pay $30 a month for. Also within that app, they're going to be able to combine the NFL fantasy sports property with their property. They really want to make their app the #1 destination for sports fans. One advantage of the new app is that they're going to be able to personalize it for you. You can get your own version of Sports Center, for example, where they're talking about only the teams and the sports that you care about, and you don't have to sit through the other stuff that you're not interested in. The NFL, in exchange, they are getting a 10% ownership stake in ESPN. Analysts estimate that is worth about $2 to $3 billion.
And while we're thinking about those big US brands, let's take a look ahead at Wall Street this week. US stocks have been riding high, but that could be about to change when we get fresh inflation data this Tuesday. The S&P 500 ended Friday up more than 8% on the year and near all-time highs, while the Nasdaq hit a record as stocks rebounded from earlier declines. But strategists are warning that stocks might be due for a pullback. If Tuesday's consumer price index comes in hotter than expected, it could throw cold water on all those bets that the Fed's about to start cutting rates. Now to eastern Estonia, where a prison could be about to get new life, as a possible deal with Stockholm could see inmates from Sweden housed in the small nation's facilities. Our reporter Andreas Sitas explains.
When the prisons were built back in the early 2000s, Estonia had about 5,000 prisoners, but currently Estonia has only 1,700 inmates. And what Estonia is finding is that it's almost impossible to repurpose prisons for anything else. Sweden is on the opposite side of this equation, and it has a swiftly increasing amount of prisoners, partly due to the increase of crime due to gangs in Sweden. Those sentenced are now facing larger time in prison.
So who would Sweden send to this prison?
The prisoners would be male, and they would be over 18 years of age, and they would be deemed low risk.
In the US, nearly 1.2 million people are housed in federal and state prisons across the nation. For a deep dive into the challenge of extreme temperatures in those crammed conditions, listen to the latest episode of the On Assignment podcast. There's a link in the description, and you can find it wherever you get your pods. And for today's recommended read, how AI is upending the software development industry. Coding bootcamps have long helped people from non-traditional backgrounds land higher-paying engineering jobs. But bootcamp operators, students, and investors tell Reuters that this path is rapidly disappearing, thanks in large part to AI. You can find out more by clicking on the link in the pod description. For more on any of today's stories, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favourite podcast player. And if you're listening on a smart speaker, just ask for the latest news from Reuters, 7 days a week. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.